Welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining us for today's presentation on overcoming communication challenges using business social software. My name is Joe Chasen and I am the Product Marketing Manager for Neudesic Pulse and the facilitator for today's webcast. This webcast will be presented by Martin Harsley, a business social software specialist, and we are very excited to have him present for us this morning. We will be sending each of you an email with a link to today's webcast recording, so there is no need for you to take notes during this presentation. If you are currently logged in to GoToWebinar successfully, you should all be able to see the title slide, which says Neudesic Pulse, Overcoming Communication Challenges Using Business Social Software. If anybody is having any problems, please close out of GoToWebinar and rejoin using the link provided to you upon registration. Okay, we will start things off with just a few housekeeping items. All attendees will be set to mute for the duration of this presentation. Please also make sure your phone or headset is muted on your end to avoid any background noise. We strongly encourage you to ask questions throughout the session by typing them into the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel. Please note that all questions will be held until the end, at which time I will present any questions asked and Martin will answer them. At this time, I'd like to turn over our presentation to Martin Harsley.
Great, thanks Joe, and good morning or good afternoon everybody. Appreciate your time attending this webinar. So as Joe said, my name is Martin Harsley. I'm a solution specialist for Neudesic, and I specialize in working with existing clients of Neudesic, deploying social collaboration, also working with potential new clients, evaluating the software. So what we wanted to do today was first of all just outline some of the current challenges that we see talking with clients regarding existing communications, then introduce you to this new class of business social software. After that, I want to give an overview demonstration of Neudesic Pulse, showing you some of the features and functionalities. And then for the participants today, we put together a special proposal in form of a call to action to allow you to fairly easily evaluate the software with our support. And also, after that, we'll go into a Q&A session. So as Joe said, as we go through his presentation, please feel free to put down your questions in the GoToMeeting log, and we'll address them at the end. So having said that, let's just go into what we see as some of the current communication challenges. So this first slide here, you can see email, very successful technology, has been around for over 40 years, which is a long time for any technology. Probably the past 20 years, Microsoft's email system has been pretty prevalently used, and it's provided great value. However, in that time period, communication needs have changed, and people have to do more work with less time. So there are some challenges using email for collaboration, great for one-to-one conversations. But as you can see here, I'm sure you're familiar with some of these, this type of example where you're asking the feedback from a number of people. It can be very difficult to sift through that feedback and rank it and basically extract the information in a meaningful manner. Also, instant messaging, conference calls, people have less and less time, as you're acutely aware, I'm sure, to do more and more work. Also, companies are becoming increasingly global, working across different time zones with dispersed workforce. So it's very difficult to get people, the right people, all available at the same time to have that direct, instant conversation. Also, even if you take minutes of these meetings, depending on where those minutes are stored, it's very difficult to access them maybe by someone else who has a similar issue that could have been solved by something discussed in the meeting. And then finally, a lot of customers, a lot of companies, they have legacy discussion boards, knowledge management systems where they have information stored about solving specific problems. What we find is they're a great source of information, but typically not the easiest to be able to navigate through and find the information you're looking for. So another example of challenges, what I'm showing here is an example of a typical company, a manufacturing company in this case. So within the departments, what we call inter-departments, say sales or R&D operations, We find there's typically pretty good communication up and down from senior management to low-level management to individuals at the shop floor maybe. But the challenges really come when those departments have to communicate intra-department. So maybe R&D, they need to collaborate with sales and customers on a new product or get feedback. Maybe finance needs to know what the status is of a deal for forecasting purposes with sales. That's where we start getting the white space and the challenges using existing methods. And to compound that, there are also silos of information. So maybe the sales organization, they'll typically use a customer relationship management system, store information on opportunities and how deals are progressing. Those are not typically easily available or at all available to other departments who may need to get that information for their business purposes. And conversely, finance, their financials or status, say, of accounts receivable, not typically easy to get to for an account manager, for instance. So you get a situation where there's a critical opportunity or a critical company that the salesperson's dealing with. You don't want someone on AR maybe contacting them at a certain time because an invoice is past due. So those are sort of the white spaces and the challenges that we typically see. And then actually over and above that, one of the things that we hear most, probably most, not always number one, but certainly in the top 3 to 5 challenges of senior management is visibility into the organization. What is happening at various levels within my company? What's happening in different departments? And given global, more and more globally dispersed workforce, people working at home, that challenge is compounded. And it's not just, I guess, visibility is one of the issues, but it also comes down to communication. How do you communicate effectively to your organization? How does your organization effectively communicate back? So we tend to find that there's a lack of connection of employees within their organization, especially as what we call the edges, maybe people at remote locations or remote divisions. And then that really that manifests itself into alignment with corporate objectives. We find that not everyone is fully aligned with the strategic objectives of the company. In fact, a number of people, maybe they don't even know what, they have some idea, but not very clearly what the overall corporate objectives are, which obviously leads to inefficient business performance, or not as good as business performance as you would like. I took this slide here from a Gallup survey back in 2011, and it was pretty surprising to me in a number of ways. Well, first of all, he's showing there quarter by quarter, it's pretty constant that the number of employees that are typically engaged is only around about 30% of the overall employees. And you get about 20% that are actively disengaged. One of the surprises to me was these are not across the board demographic workers. These are highly educated information workers where typically you would want them to be engaged to get the maximum efficiencies in communications. And another thing that this Gallup survey mentions is this is an average company. Top performing companies, typically they have double the number of engaged employees, so around about 60%. And the competitive advantage they get from that is significant. So those are some of the challenges. How does Business Social address that? Here I'm showing you a screenshot of a Business Social application. This happens to be ours. But a couple of things I think are interesting to point out. First of all, you have this lady here, and this is actually taken from a real-life example that I put into our demonstration environment. So we have this lady here, Cassie Hicks. She is a line-level worker in sales, and she's pointing out to the organization that, hey, can we make people's mobile phone numbers available in their profiles? Good idea. And you see this comment has been liked by a number of people. And then the CEO, Brad Sutton, has said, great idea, Cassie. And he's done what we call an app mention. He's pointed out Chris Gray, who will now get a notification. He's the CIO saying, let's implement this idea. So imagine how that makes Cassie Hicks feel. She's been heard. She's been recognized. She is at least 3 levels below the CEO. So How else would that have been communicated without business social software to someone 3 levels above? Are you going to send an email to them and bypass 2 levels of management? Typically not. So really a good way to give people visibility, to make their voices heard. And you obviously need good management, but it gives management the mechanism to recognize that and provide feedback. I think another thing that this points out to me also is you've got a different personalities of workers. You've got very gregarious, outgoing personality workers, but you also have some more introvert, maybe shy workers who are very smart, who have great ideas. And this is the ideal forum environment for them to be encouraged, to give ideas, to be recognized and motivated. Going back to the previous slide, hopefully increasing the amount of employee engagement and motivation. So that is what we term business social software. Showing you a slide here, this is actually my personal screenshot from my personal Facebook account. And obviously you have consumer social, which is used very much for relaxation, outside office hours to communicate with friends. Also, a great example of people getting benefit from it, but certainly not something that you want to do in a business environment. And the reason I show that is we still, I guess for better or for worse, the term social enterprise social software is being used to really highlight this new technology. And we get a lot of executives who they sort of perceive that they don't realize that the business aspect, they just think of the social aspect. Maybe they have friends or children that are sending them pictures of what they're eating for dinner on a Saturday night. So I think it's important as you will go through that you can hopefully demonstrate to your executives or senior management, make them aware that there is a real business benefit to this, and don't let that be a barrier to us at least evaluating whether the product can provide benefit for us. So what I'd like to do now, I'm just going to go into some screenshots of business social software. This is Neudesic's collaboration product. It's called Neudesic Pulse. Before I go in the demo, so here we have various classes of information that people can, using the system, they can follow or subscribe to. The first one we call people, pretty self-explanatory. You can actually look and monitor what people are posting. You can see in this case their profile. So if you're a new employee, you can browse very quickly. Say you want to see what this lady April Stewart's doing, where her expertise is, and decide whether she's someone that you think by following her you can get valuable information from. You also can look at her wall. This is where April is posting activities that she thinks are relevant or that she is putting out there to get information on feedback from the rest of the community. And also we have a series of badges, what we call gamification. So this is a mechanism where people can see who is contributing the most, whose posts are being acknowledged and liked the most. So both from a recognizing expertise and people to follow, but also motivating people to use the system, this is a great functionality. And then finally, subscriptions. So you can see here in the left the number of updates this lady has posted, the number of followers, and the number of classes of information she is following. So maybe this were your boss. This is a way very quickly you could click on the following if you work for this lady or you think what she's posting of interest, and very quickly widen your network to get more information about what's happening in the organization. So the next class of information, what we call groups, pretty self-explanatory. Groups can be groups of people. They can be by, you can class people by geography, by project, by department. What you can see here is we have what we call a bridge group. So not only are we letting individuals inside the company collaborate in this particular group, but we've also invited customers. So back to one of the challenges. Supposing you've got a new product or someone wants feedback or executives are particularly interested in a customer, they can get direct access, direct visibility to feedback from that customer by going to this particular group without having to go through sales or looking at a report. Very it's a good way to streamline the communication and get direct feedback and be able to give direct input. Also, what you can do with the system I'll show you in the demonstration is not just post information in terms of conversation or threads. You can also ask questions. You can ask for tasks to be completed, and also share files or document content with other people in these groups or systems. So I think this is a particularly powerful part, again, this is Neudesic Pulse, of where we're really adding value in an organization. So we talked about visibility, and people are the greatest asset of an organization. Connecting people is very valuable, but what we're doing here is really increasing that power into another dimension by including system events. So not only can you follow people, but you can receive and follow particular events surfaced from applications. So this example here is showing a Salesforce system, Dynamics CRM. It's a Microsoft Dynamics CRM offering. And what we're showing here is by clicking on this particular system, you get what we call the System Hub. And you can go directly into the information on that application, whether it's an opportunity or a particular customer, and follow a particular event. So down here you see we have Jackbox opportunity. So an executive or someone outside sales can follow a particular opportunity or account, be informed of what's happening without having to log into another system. Very powerful. And this is a CRM example. You could do the same thing with financials, for instance. So follow an invoice, for instance. If you have a very large, maybe a $2 million invoice, it goes from 60 days past due to 90 days past due. That's a big deal. The salesperson can be informed of that by following that versus having to wait for AR or report. So making it very accessible, very visible, and also giving you agility to respond in a faster manner. What I'm showing here also is the ability now not just to look at the event, but actually to launch the actual application from where you're accessing it, in this case, say a browser. So what we're showing here is that without having to go in and log into another system and remember passwords, etc., as long as you're authorized to do that from a security standpoint, you can get a window directly into that application, saving a lot of time and bringing information to the place you want it to be versus having to go to another system to find it. Okay, and then finally, what I'm showing here is integration we have, in this case, to Microsoft SharePoint system. As most of you probably know, a very popular document management content system. We have a lot of users that have SharePoint as their repository. They like to be able to access information. What we do, we'll talk later about how you can access from within SharePoint, but here what we're showing you is from within Pulse, you can access document libraries by, I'll show you this in the demonstration, by going to a file sharing option within the status bar and getting a window into a particular library within SharePoint. So again, giving you that flexibility to go into other systems without leaving the place that you're at. And then finally, from a Neudesic Pulse standpoint, several differentiators that we have in the market, but I think this one really is probably one of the most important. From an adoption standpoint, it's not a case of, although these are very easy to use tools, it's not a case of build it, they will come. They may come initially, but then they'll leave. What we have done is basically given people the ability to access this social experience from wherever they work, wherever they want. In other words, they don't need to go to another place. So we're a very large Microsoft partner. We thought very long and hard about putting our Pulse collaboration platform within SharePoint. And ultimately, we decided not to do that. Although we have a lot of people that access Pulse through SharePoint, we also have people that want to access it from other methods. So we show here, you can access this experience through a native web browser. Mobile, more and more important. We have native apps that you can download from the major mobile device providers, and you can access directly from that environment. Also, you can access it in your own line of business applications, or what I'm showing here is a business intelligence dashboard. So that's what we call a social embed. You can actually embed Pulse into the application where you typically work and have that social experience with other people accessing it through other methods. And then finally, last but not least, we still, although there are challenges with email, some people still like email, a certain demographic. They don't want to go to a new social or web-based experience. You can actually access the majority of the functionality and the communications via email. You would never actually access through a browser experience if you did not want to. So you still have that ability to get access to a lot of this collaboration and visibility directly from email. Okay, so let me just go now into a demonstration of the Neudesic Pulse product. So what I'm showing you here, this is, I am logged in as the CEO of this demonstration company called Launch Corp. When I log in, this is the first thing that I will see. This is what we call my unified activity stream. So this is a collection of all the people, the groups, and the systems, and also tags, which I'll explain in a minute, that I've chosen to follow. So very quickly, a good source, flow of information of all the things that I think are important to me. Can be sometimes a little overwhelming, so what you can do is customize your view, just the same as you can with a browser. So maybe I just want to look at a particular subset, maybe a financial view. I can have a collection of finance group and maybe the CFO and follow that without the other noise. Also what I can do is I can filter by what we call the apps. So maybe all I want to do is look at all the posts that have a file, or maybe all the posts that have an image, and I'm able to do that very, very easily. So what I'm showing you now is the status bar. This is where I can interact with Pulse and correspondingly the people who are following me, or the group, or in the groups, or other areas that I'm also a member of. So let me just go here and type in a question. And you see very quickly what is happening here is the system's Pulse is interpreting the question that I'm asking and showing me the similar questions that have already been asked. So all the knowledge that is stored within Pulse is in a back-end database that is searchable and indexable. So you see up here, there's a top right, there's a search bar. Any information, whether from somebody who's left the company, from a meeting that no one remembers, as long as the threads or the documentation is put into Pulse, you'll be able to access that later. So now what will happen is people that are following me or can see this post from the groups or other areas, they will be able to give me feedback and give me information on the answer to the question that I'm asking. So if I go now down here and I filter this view just by questions, go down here and see this lady Ellen Adams asked a question, please can someone tell me where the 2012 tax guidelines are located? What we've done here is we've inserted what's called a tag, and a tag is basically a way to subcategorize information. It can be a taxonomy or a folksonomy. So a good example of that, maybe you have a group that's called HR. Maybe within that you want to classify further posts in HR, maybe by health insurance or by retirement. You can do that by tagging them appropriately. So if I click on this tag here, HR, this will take me to the HR tag. I can see all the posts applicable to HR. Also, what you see here is these questions, you have the ability to vote up or vote down the answers to a particular question. In other words, the community can look at these answers and they can actually determine the expertise of the correctness of the answer, who's giving the best answer. So basically, you're going to get experts that bubble up that are voted by the community versus self-proclaimed. So if I go here to find experts, you can see in this demo environment, should I want to get information about HR, then Ellen Adams, she would be a good choice given the weighting of both the number of answers and the votes she's received. So if I go now to, from this main activity feed, if I go to people, I can filter by different types of people, most active people, followed people in a certain geography. If I go to most active people, here you see all the people and their profiles. I can hover over them. I can follow or unfollow. So very easy to navigate, very easy to browse. And then should I go deeper into the system, click on a certain person's wall, I can decide if I want to follow them, and also look at who they're following and quickly, as I said earlier, expand my community. So if I go now to groups, as described earlier, you can define groups and invite people to groups based on geography, on project. You can also have third-party people in the invite them, what we call a bridge group. Third-party people could be clients or suppliers. They would only have access and only see the group they're invited to. Again, a very powerful feature that doesn't require additional licensing from us, and we also have our own authentication that makes that very easy to do and also secure. So maybe talked about visibility. Maybe I'm the CEO. I just want to look and see what's happening in global finance. And very quickly I get a picture of that, and I can post appropriately. So if I go here now to, let's just create a new group. Type in example group, hit create, and that's all I need to do. Now I've created that group. Very, very simple and easy to do. If I go back to settings, show you here the audience type by default is employees. That is all internal users. I can actually invite customers by clicking on the audience button. I can also designate an SMTP address. We talked earlier about people being able to access the system via email or respond via email. This is how you would do that in this case. And then if I click on privacy, see by default all employees have been invited to the group. I can very easily make that a private group. Maybe I start inviting people, and then we're called Anu, Cassie Hicks. So now I have a private group that I'm giving access to a limited number of people. So you may have situations where you don't want to share sensitive content or confidential particular client information. You can do that. I can also change the access level of the people I've invited. Maybe I want someone only to have read-only access. You have that full control. And also, as I said, include customers in this group. So let me go now here to systems. You can see we talked in the screenshots about the ability to access dynamic CRM. This is showing you that same example here, but now in real time. So let me just go back to home now, and let's make a post. Say we want to share this file. I can go to share file here. I can also share images and videos, which obviously, depending on the requirement, can be much more, give much more information from a training standpoint, safety standpoint, or product launch. But let's just say I want to share a document. I can actually upload it from the network. I can upload it from my hard drive. Let's say I want to actually link to a SharePoint document. So this is going directly into SharePoint, although I'm actually accessing, in this case, through a web browser. So what I'm opening up here now is a document library. Let me just click, say, on this document, 401k, and there it is. So now what I've done is I have posted a link to a document that people accessing Pulse can look at, can review, even though it's been stored in SharePoint. So a very powerful way, without having to log into SharePoint, to access that content. Again, you do need the security requirements. If you didn't have the necessary authorization, you wouldn't see that post. You wouldn't be able to access it. So hopefully that's given you a very quick overview of some of the capabilities of the system. A lot of other capabilities in terms of sharing and collaboration, but wanted to give you a sense of that. What I want to do now is show you again, just reinforce what we call that social fabric, the ability to access Pulse from where I want. So right now, you can access through mobile. I cannot show you that. You can embed. Don't have that in the demonstration. But what I can do here is very quickly go from what we call native browser mode to what we call SharePoint integrated mode. So what I'm doing now here is I'm actually logging in directly into an intranet site through SharePoint. So this is typical native SharePoint look and feel. But what we also have here is the Pulse conversation stream within SharePoint. So you see here the post I just made, 401k retirement planning document, that's visible. So again, gives you that power and ease of adoption, letting you access from where you want and share that information. So if I go maybe to the documents section or human resources. Again, you have that conversation stream down here. I have the documents. What I can also do is if I go here to view properties for that 401k planning information document, see I now have the ability to post in Pulse some context associated with that document. Very powerful combination, being able to have the document but also give a history or an explanation or launch a discussion thread about that document. And that can be, in this case, through SharePoint or through other access methods. And we have just shown you SharePoint. Obviously, it's a very popular system. We have the same capabilities of other document management systems and the ability to link to a number of other different systems. So I'll give you a quick overview. Mentioned earlier we wanted to give a particular special offer for people in the audience today to evaluate. We're very happy to extend to you a 30-day trial of the system. To do that, you simply go to this web address and fill in your information, your name, and then we will get an instance loaded for you to evaluate. We can help you with that should you choose to, or you could do that standalone with the documentation provided. Also, what we want to do is, for the audience participants and the companies that you're representing, give you the opportunity to really make an informed decision on what can social do for me. How's it going to help my particular environment, my particular business processes? So should you want to take us up on the offer, we're happy to schedule a free social assessment for up to 40 hours on site. We go through the details of that with you. It's something that we spend a lot of time and work with a lot of companies on and have a pretty good methodology. Hopefully showing you that the benefits are real and giving you some tangible areas to focus on that are going to bring immediate value to the company. So having said that, I want to open it up for questions now. So Jill, do we have any questions that we can go through?
Yes, Martin, thank you. Just want to remind attendees that if they want to ask questions, they can navigate to the questions section within GoToWebinar control panel, type the message, and just click send. Our first question, Martin, is how would you recommend this be implemented, especially avoiding the following doomed approach? Explain Pulse to the user community, release Pulse with fanfare, and hope it goes viral.
Yeah, so good question. So this is not a build it and they will come. What typically happens with social is that people will come, they're interested, but unless there's a real business need and stickiness, that is not going to be sustainable. So we've got a very well-rounded out adoption practice that we also offer as part of a Pulse implementation. So we will work with clients to go through in a workshop-style environment. Okay, where are the business processes that typically make sense? We have, for a particular company, let's look at your specific business processes. But also we've got business frameworks built out for typical departments, R&D, HR, for instance, where we've seen value in the past, and we can provide those in a non-confidential format to basically act as catalysts and accelerators to find the best bang for the buck. So happy to, I'm not sure who the person that asked that question, but happy to go into that further, and if you want to take us up on the free social assessment, I'll just follow up via email with further clarification on that.
Thank you, Martin. The next question is, can Pulse be accessed via other mobile devices besides phones?
Yes, so I'm taking that would mean iPads. Yeah, we do make the Pulse available via iPad also, and tablet devices.
Great. Next question, how do I know if people are using Enterprise Social once it's been deployed?
Yeah, so good question. So what I didn't show in the demonstration was there is a very full functional administration section where you can actually track individual users, number of posts. You can see the activities of different groups and basically track the trends. And that's something we do during an adoption services engagement. We track that and basically respond accordingly depending on where need is required to either increase adoption or catalyze areas that we've seen a particular interest in. I think also one sidebar to this is that what we found with some customers is that they're actually identifying future leadership based on the posts that individuals are making, but also how they're being recognized by their peers, how many likes they have, and how many comments on their posts. And also a leading indicator also you can find by what particular groups are most active. That can give you insight into where you need to focus future business on.
Thank you, Martin. Another question, how long does it typically take to implement the product?
Yeah, good question. So to typically implement a matter of hours. We have versions that run on-prem and also in the cloud. Depending on the integration, typically that is not, you're talking about a few days, depending on what the applications are. But in terms of adopting, that really is, how long is a piece of string. And for a company that's looking at enterprise deployment, to put together, we work with that company, put together a strategy based on an engagement. You're talking about 90 days, which, it's about focusing on the right areas, getting the right critical use cases, and then after that happens, then the system will start to become viral, grow. But you really need that good foundation. And we typically, 90 days would be probably a long estimate, but certainly within 90 days we would expect to have a good strategy and people adopting and growing the use of the collaboration product with the appropriate benefits.
Great, Martin. Just a few more questions. This one's somewhat related to the first. What is one of the biggest challenges you've seen with adoption?
Well, biggest challenges, I'd say one, we touched on it earlier, executive buy-in. I think there's this technology is somewhat disruptive, although the benefits are huge, so there is some change management. It's not a typical hierarchical organizational tool. It flattens that organization. It's great, but you need that organization to buy into that approach, which ultimately I think creates great rewards, but there is that challenge. I think also, like I said before, there is unfortunately a perception where maybe the terminology social collaboration, we get some resistance from senior management because they have a perception it's not going to be used for business benefit. And then the blocking and tackling of, let's find the appropriate use cases. If you just put this out there, you'll get certain adoption, but you'll never get, the chances of getting the critical mass are significantly mitigated versus going through an adoption program.
Okay, next question, Martin, is does Pulse integrate with SharePoint 2010 and 2013, including SharePoint tags?
Sorry, including what?
SharePoint tags
Oh,
functionality?
yes, it does. So, yeah, we have been members of because we're a Microsoft Services partner, we've been working with SharePoint 2013 for quite a while as part of the TAP program. We have full integration with Pulse to that version. Also SharePoint 2010, which we have out of the box available now. And yeah, we have full integration to SharePoint tags.
Thank you, Martin. Just two more questions. Does Pulse support fast search integration, federated search?
Yes, it does. And that's a great, I think that's a good question because the ability to federate search of content and profiles, but also linking in posts and information in groups pertaining to that content, that really is a powerful combination. So, yeah, we work with a number of companies to implement FAST, so they have that search across their document libraries, but also including all the contextual posts from Pulse.
Thanks, Martin. Just one more question. Does Pulse get implemented on top of SharePoint?
No, it does not. So back to I guess the architecture diagram, we leverage, for people that want to access through SharePoint, they absolutely can do. We have web parts that make that very, gives you a seamless integration, and I actually demonstrated that in the second modality. But what I would emphasize is that if you would like to access via SharePoint, you can, but you do not have to. You can access through other methods. So, and that is because Pulse is not a part of SharePoint. It resides separately, although it's pretty seamless should you want to access through SharePoint.
Great. Thank you, Martin. We're going to leave the questions window open for a bit. If anybody has any more questions, please feel free to type them in. Just in the interest of time, we're going to have to follow up on those particular questions via email after the webinar. At this point, we just love to gauge the success of our webinar. The first one is, was this content helpful? If you wouldn't mind just choosing yes or no, we'd appreciate it. Okay. Second question we have is, please rate the content of this presentation. We provide a few choices there for you. We're always looking to improve. Thank you, everyone. Just two more questions. Are you interested in a personalized demonstration or a free 30-day trial of Pulse? You can choose either one. Great. And just the last question, we like to gauge our marketing efforts. We just want to know, how did you hear about this webinar? And you can answer email, Twitter, Facebook, or other. Terrific. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to do that. If you have any further questions after the webinar, please feel free to email them to pulseinfo@neudesic.com. That is neudesic.com. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. You are now free to disconnect.